We spoke to the London Mayor, Sadiq Khan, specifically about the issue of jihadis returning to the UK, people who've actually fought in Iraq and Syria. 800 or, I mean, the numbers differ, but we don't know where they are when they come back to the UK. Yeah. And the Mayor said half of them come back to the capital. He doesn't know where they are. Why is it not absolutely incumbent on the police to monitor where the people we know are trained to kill actually are when they return home?
Well, anybody who presents a threat or risk should be accompanied by a plan, whether it's security services or the police or a joint venture, to be able to mitigate as many of those risks. If somebody's whereabouts aren't known, and the risks exist, that means there's a vulnerability around that. So when you
But when they come back, when they turn up and have their passport checked, is it obvious? I mean, is it part of the problem that nobody turns up at passport control and says, hands up, I've just come back from fighting in Syria and therefore I need to be tagged? I mean, how do you find out who these people are? Is that part of the issue? Well,
we have got a very strong intelligence community and we should know who these people are and we should know when they're travelling back into the country so we can intercept them at that point and satisfy ourselves about the risk or danger they present.
So how come that's not happening?
Well, I think in a lot of the cases there is. In some cases where it's not happening, then things do fall through the net and that's the gap that we need to be able to address.
You've got kids and you've been quite strong about parental responsibility here. What is your message to other Muslim parents out there in this country who may not even be aware of what is happening with their kids in terms of the radicalisation?
Well, this ideology is so compelling that I think as much vigilance that you can have within your own family environment, within your own community, within your networks, is absolutely necessary.
What should they look for?
They've got to look for... I mean, there's not one single answer. They've got to look for any signs of change in attitude, in words, in description, and then look to see why that change has occurred.
But to you, with all your experience, what are the key alarm bells which would say to you that a perfectly normal, well-brought-up young Muslim has suddenly been turned?
Well, they start to express maybe anti-West sentiments, more beliefs about Islam being the right way. And, you know, what I've been saying for a long time is actually the compatibility between British values and Islamic values are exactly the same. And it's when people try to separate those, for example, as one is more austere, one is more pristine than the other, I think that represents
We had an imam on last week who point-blank denied that out of the 2,000 mosques in this country, that any of them were extreme, that any of them were preaching the Wahhabi, very hardline conservative form of Islam, that any of them were even being sponsored by countries like Saudi Arabia. We know that to be nonsense. I mean,
I can't see that anybody can claim that. I'm not saying that all mosques are dens of extremism. I do think mosques can do a lot more, and as I've tried to explain, a lot more about civic responsibility, your contribution to this country in which we live, your ability to have human rights, equal rights, especially women's rights as well. So a lot more can be done around that. But as for somebody saying that all mosques are absolutely clear of extremism, I think that's a dangerous position because I don't think that's the case.
You know for a fact that's nonsense, right?
I do know for a fact that, and I won't go into details, that is a nonsense.
What should the government be doing? There are multiple ways of tackling this, but what is the government not doing enough of, do you think?
I think the government need to understand that actually Islam is not homogenous. There's different sects, different denominations, all of which require a different understanding and therefore a different approach. And it's got to be at grassroots level. The police play a part, but also do public services and bring that partnership work at a very local level where you have trust and confidence so we can get to know each other, talk to each other and understand what the issues are.
I mean, my thing about it is I just don't think people in the Muslim community should feel offended to have this conversation. All these killers are coming from Muslim communities in this country. You can't just deny the undeniable. So embrace what is happening, accept what is happening and work collaboratively to try and root out these people before they commit heinous crimes. Why should that be an offensive thing to suggest?
Well, it shouldn't be, and it shouldn't be seen as such. Having the ability to open conversation without meaning to insult anybody and being sensitive around this is the way forward. Where people are afraid to have those conversations in fear of being politically incorrect, I think that's letting down our ability to tackle the problem.